I'm Dora Barrett here with the Mustang Report, and I'm here with Mr. Cullen, Teacher of the Week this week. We're going to be asking you a few questions this morning. When did you start teaching?
2006, 2007 school year was my first year teaching, but I was a sub here and a student teacher here the year before that as well.
Okay, and why did you start teaching?
I kind of always was intrigued by the idea when I was younger, and then I got out after college into a corporate environment and realized it wasn't for me. It wasn't really something I was interested in, and I kind of always had in the back of my mind about being a teacher, so after having a little taste of the real world and not liking working in a cubicle in an office, decided to go back to grad school and become a teacher.
Awesome. And what is your favorite part about teaching?
Besides getting paid to talk about history nerd stuff all day, is actually working with young people and getting to help them learn not just academic stuff, but like some social instruction we do here about working with groups or how to be a mature, responsible adult. And getting to watch people, like you, I had you for 2 years, see kind of where you are at the start of sophomore year and where you end up by the end of senior year is kind of a nice non-financial reward to this job.
Okay, and being a former student of yours, I know that you love the band Fish and you've been to numerous concerts. And what's the number of concerts you've been to now?
I have seen 87 Fish concerts since the summer of 1994, but I've got 3 more booked already for this coming summer, so it'll be up to 90. My goal is to hit 100 concerts by next year.
Very exciting, very exciting. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor. Nice talking to you.
My name's Samantha Melanza. So what did you all think about the film that we saw?
I thought the film would have been better for a younger audience, more like 6th graders rather than high school students who are already set in their ways. If it was done to 6th graders, they're more influential and you can change the way they think and how they act with certain things.
I agree with that, but I think the film had a good intention of teaching us about awareness of technology and how it's impacting us, but I do think that the way it was kind of shown to us and formatted, it was very kind of dramatic and not kind of put together for our best interest.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was very informative and they did have the right intent to show it to us, but I think it could have been a little more realistic. Us trying to relate to a 12-year-old girl is kind of a little harder, so maybe if it was somebody that was our age, it would have been a little more realistic. I agree with everyone. I feel like the young girl was a little too far away in age from us, and I feel like the show went more into detail about what the future would look like for people our age who are using the phones as much as we are.
It kind of targeted only a certain audience, and it was hard to relate to because, first of all, the girl was younger, and there was a boy in it who played video games, and I know a lot of people in high school play video games, but maybe not as much as this boy was. And yeah, I see why they're trying to show us the videos and how a lot of kids our age are using technology a lot, but I think it's part of us growing up, and it just wasn't easy to relate to the students.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty strange that the main character was the person that we were following was she was in middle school, right? So I thought that was pretty weird. I thought it was also strange in the beginning when they try to use an Imagine Dragons song, they're trying to connect with us, but it didn't feel like it was working. But I do think it's an important issue to talk about because I think it's a thing that we need to address is how much we use our technology.
I liked how they talked a lot about self-control because I think that teachers, parents just telling you to put your phone away isn't going to help in the long run, because when they're not there, you're just going to use it again. So I think that self-control and them teaching us how we need to keep track of how we use our technology is very important.
To go along with the self-control part, I think that like as high schoolers and people that grew up in like I don't know 2000s era, we have kind of like a self-control like implemented in ourselves, but the younger generations who like right now the 2 and 3-year-olds are like that should be who like we watch out for, because they're literally growing up on it. The parents are using it as like a form of babysitting for them. Like they're just throwing them an iPad and like they'll leave the room, and like that's something that we need to watch for instead of mainly us.
When I talked about the film in classes with my teachers and peers, a lot of them were addressing how the film only targeted like upper middle class white students or white people or families, besides one family. But there was a lot of complaints that like it didn't, for this high school, it didn't really fit us because we're so diverse and there's so many different cultures and peoples and different type of parenting styles that it didn't really address, or people couldn't relate to the film as much as the school maybe hoped it could.
So did you guys learn anything specifically from the movie? Any specific facts or interesting things?
I thought that the fact that they have kind of like a rehab center for like addiction of technology is very interesting, but it's also, I don't know, I don't really like associate cell phone addiction with real drug addiction, which was kind of weird for me to kind of like see them together. That's something that I learned. It was interesting.
I learned how technology affected other people. I know how it affects me and my experience with it. It's an important part of my life, I would say, but I wouldn't say I'm crazy about it. And it was kind of weird for me to see somebody who was so addicted to their like phone or video games like the people in the movie.
I thought it was interesting how they talked a little bit about how technology could be affecting us in the long run. Like little kids using it growing up for hours a day could affect their brain in the long run. So I thought that was interesting how they mentioned that.
Although there's like a lack of telling us scientifically like what was going on when we use our phones, they did mention that like we release dopamine when we learn new information, and that's why we like tend to want to know what comes up on our phone, like messages, because we're always trying to get that release of happiness from looking at our new messages to learn new things. What was the best advice you learned from the movie?
The best advice I learned was to regulate your time on your phones, and when, like the pediatrician mother who the film was based around, I thought it was interesting, well, the advice she gave her daughter to like set it aside when you're at home or when you're with people was definitely something that like clicked in my head, like, oh yeah, I should remind myself not to use my phone at like the dinner table, or even have my phone anywhere in front of me at the dinner table or when I'm with people.
What's your opinions of the phones in the school? How should they be utilized in the school?
Yeah, I get it. Well, I think a lot of my teachers do it pretty well. Is like some of my classes, it's more of you can they'll utilize it as like a tool in the classroom, but people shouldn't just have it out in class if they're not doing any work with it. But I think it's like an important part of, I don't think it should just be like you can't have your phones in class, because I think that's a little unrealistic, because in the real world we're going to like use our phones and technology. I just think it's like they can use it in a way that it's beneficial to the class. So
I thought in the film there's 2 different ways that schools use the phones or had the phones out compared to our school. Some schools didn't allow the phone at all, like in New York, and then other schools let the students use the phones freely whenever they wanted. And seeing kids sit playing games on their phone was a little ridiculous, and I think our school has a very good phone policy, and you don't see kids using their phones during class as much. You see them engaging in class.
I think that utilizing technology during the school and during like the classroom hours, I believe it's a good asset to like learning and like furthering our knowledge. I think it's up to like the individual student as if they're gonna not pay attention to the lesson or not put their like best interests forth further. So I feel like by having the phone, and if you have good self-control, it's not going to affect you as much as a student that's not going to try their best.
I think that being able to use your phone in class productively teaches you self-control because you're learning that you need to use all your time productively while using technology opposed to playing games or just not paying attention in class. So I think it teaches self-control as much as you need to have it.
I feel like cell phones are such like a big tool that we have to use, and you can use like you can look up things, you can type things. There's so much we can get done with our phones that I feel like not using it is just a waste. So the whole topic of the movie was based on whether she should not get her daughter a phone or not. So what age do you think is the correct age after watching Screenagers to get your child a phone?
Well, I think there's no need for a child that is not in middle school to have a phone because when you're that young, you're always going to have either a parent there, a teacher there, or a responsible adult with you. So I don't think that anybody really younger than 13 years old should have a cell phone. That's when I got my first phone. So I just think it's not okay for parents to give their kids phones just because they want one. I don't think they need it under 13.
I think there's a total difference between a phone and a smartphone because now we have computers, tablets, and everything that kids are getting so much younger. So like a normal phone is used to make calls and text, so like there's a difference of what age people should be getting phones and tablets. Like a phone you need for communication, so anyone that's in middle school going away from their parents having to walk home, that's a good age, anywhere in the teens. But like a tablet, a smartphone should not be given to anyone like under their teenage years.
I think definitely if a child needs it like in 5th grade, like they could have a flip phone or a phone that's strictly for texting or calling their parents to tell them if they're home or where they are, if they need a ride. But a smartphone shouldn't be given to a child unless they're in middle school. That's definitely like at the right age.
I think it kind of depends on the parent. It's like if you want your kid to check in with you, or you want them to be safe, like you want to know where they are. Sometimes, then you have to figure out what time is best for your kid to have a phone.
Going off of what they say, I think it's definitely based off of safety, and that's one of the main reasons phones were invented, to check in with people and to make sure people knew where you were and you were safe. And I think that's the reason younger kids should be getting cell phones, not for the sole reason that it's fun and everybody else has one.
What have you kids seen in the school as far as kids abusing the phone, things they shouldn't be doing in class or in the corridors or whatever? Any opinions on that?
Well, you see kids occasionally texting, but in the end, it's their education that they're missing out on. And I feel like majority of kids I've seen in class are actually doing their work when they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I agree. If they're slacking off during class, playing games, I mean, it's just only going to affect them negatively. So if they are slacking off, it's going to have a negative outcome on them in the end. So
I think that kids are using it like for what they need it for. They use it to type papers, look up things on the internet. There's a little bit of like kids not obviously not paying attention and like goofing off with it, but I think it comes in handy when like there's nothing to do. You have a dry period or a lecture hall and you have nothing to do. It's good to it's not good to, but it's okay to play games then, but not when you're in a class. And I don't really see much of that.
You occasionally see students in the hallways like their phones hooked up to speakers or headphones, and that's obviously one of the examples of what not to do in school. And I mean that doesn't happen very often, but I think most of the students know what they should and shouldn't be doing with their phones, and the hallway rules are simple to follow. You can take them out in the hallways and just not in classes, and I think it's good.
Yeah, I've seen kids in class sometimes use them, but I don't really find it that distracting. So if they're gonna, they want to waste their time in class, then that's fine. And then the teacher can, they can take it up on themselves if they want to call the kid out or not. And but yeah, that's about it.